live audio video. .org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about through a telescope, National Space Society event.
Kilo 5 Yankee Alpha Kilo, Dawn and Arlington. Kilo 5 Juliet Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell. This is Kilo Echo 5 Echo November, Eric in Plano. November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony and Dallas. Kilo X-Ray, Gentry, Louisville.
Kilo Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn in Louisville. Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto.
Yes, it's November 5 Yankee Alpha Kilo, November 5 Yankee Alpha Kilo.
full call is Kilo India 5, Bravo Kilo X-ray.
Kilo Golf 5, Victor Juliet Papa, Robert and Richardson.
Whiskey 5, Echo Bravo Bravo, David in Dallas.
Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton. This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill Farm Springs.
November 5, Yankee, Echo Oscar Steven, San Antonio.
Is Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Charlie Tango, David in Frisco. Is Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, 8 near Weatherford.
Kilo India 5, Bravo November Papa, Luis in Fort Worth. Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Zulu Zulu, Dallas, Bob. did.
This is Quebec, X-Ray, India, Grimes and Rockwell. Kilo, Golf, Quebec, X-Ray, India, Glen and Rockwell. This is
Whiskey, Bravo, number 4, Mike, Foxtrot, India, WB, 4, MFI, Ted, Dallas, Low Power.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, this is KFI PDS, your net control this evening for this session of the DARC Skynet. Awesome. Well, welcome to everyone who has checked in. So let's go ahead and get started with general announcements. So we'll see if we have any general announcements for this evening's net. These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If so, please come now with your call sign.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
T5TM, good evening, Tony. What announcements do you have for us this evening?
Good evening, Billy. I'd like to remind everyone to please check the TechNet announcements posted at w5fc.org. I'll just briefly summarize them here. The next Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting is coming up this coming Tuesday, October 7th at the Dallas Medical Center. We'll be having a presentation on building and fabricating digital, or designing and fabricating digital hotspots. We're at the Dallas Medical Center, northeast corner, in the third floor community room of the main hospital building. I hope you can join us. The board meets at 6 and the general meeting is at 7 p.m. This is also your last chance to sign up for LifeWalk on Sunday, October 7th, if you'd like to eat lunch, that is. If you'd like to participate in this public service event on Sunday, October 7th, please quickly get in touch with the club this weekend so we can get your name turned in on October 1st. You can just use the Contact Us form at w5fc.org. Finally, don't forget that we have TechNet on the Hill coming up in October 2 on October 27th. If you'd like to be a presenter, Please get in touch with KE5GIT at W5FC.org. Otherwise, please watch the club website for details and plan on coming out later in the month. It should be a really fun event. This is NT5TM.
Great, thank you, Tony. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to LifeWalk. And if anybody is looking to kind of get started with doing public service events and helping out with communication support, this is a great first event. This was the first event that I ever worked doing these type of events, and it's a lot of fun, and it's very easy intro into doing communication support for these public service fun run type events, and it's a lot of positive energy out there too, so it's a great time. So please do join us. We always need volunteers. All right, is there anyone else with any announcements for this evening's net? If so, please come now. Okay, not hearing any. So I've been asked a special request to call for questions at this time. So do we have any questions or information anybody might wish to share or ask on the net this evening? I was told that there was one question, so if that person is out there, please come now with your call sign. Okay, it seemed like somebody tried to access. I know that I'd heard there was a question about recommendations for a good space book, so I'm not sure if that person was trying to come on or if there's issues with audio on Echolink. But if so, if you have your question, please come now with your call sign. Okay, not hearing anyone, so we'll go ahead with some more announcements, and if a person is out there that has their question and wants to ask later in the net, please feel free to check in with us, and we'll get some answers going for you. Okay, so the amateur AMSAT radio amateur satellite group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time. You'll need Echolink installed and be registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. And the Dallas AMSAT net, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. The DARC also has several nets on Monday evenings. The first Monday is Ham Fixin's net. If you like to cook, eat, have a question about food, would like to share a recipe or an anecdote, all are welcome on Ham Fixin's net. The second Monday of the month is MCOM 101, Emergency Communications. The third Monday of the month, come back for a second helping of Ham Fixin's net. We have some wonderful recipes that get shared, so even if you don't have something to share, tune in and you can write down some really good recipes. And the fourth Monday is GeekNet. Well, we share anything geeky from movies, books, news of the weird, all different kinds of things. If it's geeky, it'll be shared. There's also really good brain teasers. And if there's ever a fifth Monday is usually reserved for Surprise Net. I've done everything from Christmas Thunderdome, best and worst Christmas presents, to April Fool's Truth or Lies. Many rounds of Jeopardy have been played, and I believe there was even a create your own short story evening. So you never know what's in store for the surprise net on Fifth Mondays. On Wednesday nights, you can check in for Veterans Net on the first and third Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time. And Saturdays is the Night of Nets, with TechNet going from 7 to 8 p.m. and, of course, at 9 p.m., Skynet. The ARRL Net, National Traffic System Training Net, is also every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and all are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. And don't forget, after tonight's Skynet, join us for the Afterglow Movie Net. So at this time, I'll call on Tom, KE5ICX, to give us some info on the Afterglow. I know how you love to read it, so I'll turn it over to you. This is KF5PDS to KE5ICX.
Well, thank you, Miss Billy. All right, here we go. Everybody listen. You know the tune. Here it goes. Just sit right back and you hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this tropic port aboard this tiny ship. The friend was a famous businessman, a family friend for sure. 3 passengers set sail that day for a 3-hour tour. Everybody together, a 3-hour tour. The surrounding air was getting tough. The scuba gear was tops. If not for the air in the divers' suits, the boaters would be lost. Everybody, the boaters would be lost. Ship set ground on the shore of this uncharted desert isle, with Evelyn and Harold, too, the billionaire and his boat. It's a Corman phone with just 3 stars, the last woman on Earth. Join us at 10:30, friends, to critique this fine film, because no one else will watch it all. And this doesn't rhyme. It's a real crime. It's a real crime. So join us for the Afterglow movie this evening, The Last Woman on Earth at 10:30 p.m. Even if you didn't see it, this movie script is so pedestrian, you'll figure it out without ever having seen the movie. That's it from me. Back to Net Control.
Well, thanks, little buddy. And you can keep up with all DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. All right, at this time, let's see if there's anyone, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. See if there's anyone on frequency that would like to talk about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas or give announcements about tasks. If so, please come now with your call sign. Okay, not hearing anyone, so I'll go ahead and give some information. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas have monthly meetings. The Meet Center building, SLC, on the campus map, and it's important that you park in only lots H, I, or J, as parking elsewhere on campus could result in a ticket. You can go to the utdallas.edu website to see a campus map. It's my understanding that you can now park in those lots in any color parking, green, gold, or orange, as the president has worked out a arrangement, I think, with campus police. So you can park anywhere in a beginner astronomy class in alternate months. You can check that, what the schedule is for that on the Texas Astronomical Society website. Meeting programs presented by members or guest speakers, and there's a slideshow of the current constellation of the month. And you can find out more about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas by going to the website at www.texasastro.org. And you can click on the calendar and see the events that are listed and click on the individual events to get more information about the particular event you wish to attend. So, again, do we have anyone on frequency who would like to talk about Texas Astronomical Society? If so, please come now with your call sign. Okay. The Texas Astronomical Society also hosts observing parties every Saturday night, beginning at sunset and concluding around 10 p.m. Central Time. Each week is a different location for observing, so make sure you get complete details for the Saturday night you wish to attend. Again, you can go to www.texasastro.org, click on the calendar in the pull-down for complete details. Tonight, there was a star party scheduled, but I believe it was canceled due to inclement weather. I believe I saw something on the Facebook, but I wasn't sure of the location. So usually, because this is a fifth Saturday, I'm not sure what the location was, but I know first Saturday is usually Spring Park in Garland. Second Saturday is Frisco Commons Park in Frisco. Third Saturday is J.W. Williams Park in Cedar Hill. And fourth Saturday is usually the Shores Park in Rockwall. Yeah, Tom, I see your message there, but I saw a message that came up on a post on a website. I'll see if I can find it here in a moment while I turn the net over to Bill N5BB for National Space Society events and activities. So at this time, I will turn the net over to you, Bill. N5BB, the net is yours. Okay, thanks for the information, Tom. Yeah, I saw a post in the Texas Astronomical Society Facebook page 2 hours ago. Hugh Stevens made a post saying, hello, Taff. I have it on good authority that the Stars on the Rock Star Party is canceled due to inclement weather, but Stars on the Rock is usually the fourth Saturday, so I'm not sure if they were having a fallback, if this was meant to be an alternate date for a prior cancellation on the regular night or what, but that was the Facebook post I saw 2 hours ago, so that's what I was referring to. Normally, yes, on a fifth Saturday there is not a scheduled star party, I guess unless they wanted to use that as a backup date, but I'm not for sure on that. But again, you can always go to Texas Astronomical Society website, texasastro.org, and see the calendar and find the event that you wish to attend. And you can click on the individual events to get the details for that particular event. Okay, again, I'll see if Bill N5BB is on frequency. I was told that you checked in, and I thought I heard you check in. So if you're there, you can give us a report on the National Space Society events and activities. I'd love to hear from you. So again, I'll call for Bill N5BB. The net is yours. Not hearing Bill. I'll go ahead with my report for net controls for this evening. And Bill, if you come back, you can give us a check-in, let us know when you're ready, and we'll come back to your report on the National Space Society. So tonight, I'm continuing my talk about the NASA analog missions. So this is an ongoing multi-part presentation, and each month I'll present a different analog mission. So in case you're joining us for the first time this evening, what are analog missions? Well, an analog is a situation on Earth that produces effects on the body similar to those experienced in space, both physical and mental, emotional. And these studies are to help prepare us for long-duration missions. And NASA is associated with at least 15 analog missions throughout the world. And you can read up on these. I'm just going to www.nasa.gov/analogs and just picking a different analog mission to talk about each month. So this month is the information about the Hestia analog mission. So Hestia, if you know your mythology, is the Greek goddess of the hearth and home, and also is known by the Roman name Vesta. So the Hestia mission their goal is to develop a high-fidelity, human-in-the-loop, lunar Mars surface analog in support of next-generation human exploration missions. The environment is a closed-loop atmospheric representation, which has, is at pressure, CO2, O2 composition, and trace gases. They do collaborations and research on environmental control and life support systems, habitation systems, human health and performance, and human research programs. The contact is Joey Marmolejo, and this facility is located at the Johnson Space Center. So Hestia is a 20-foot chamber facility, which is a multi-level facility which serves as the Hestia habitat, and it has many unique capabilities unlike any other facility available to NASA. This human-related facility was used to support Gemini, Apollo, and Skylab programs. And more recently, it was used to conduct 30, 60, and 90-day human environmental control life support system closed-loop testing in the 1990s to support the International Space Station and life support technology development. The chamber geometry is consistent with habitability concepts for both translation and surface habitats. In other words, it's a multi-storied cylindrical structure. The chamber can operate at reduced pressure and elevated oxygen environments, including those proposed for deep space exploration by the Exploration Atmosphere Working Group. The facilities are available to support a wide range of research activities, including data acquisition, monitoring, control, power, fluids, pressure and atmospheric control, and other key resources. They have man and transfer locks, which allow the transfer of personnel and or material into and out of the chamber without affecting the internal environment. These are mandatory for long-duration human testing of closed-loop environmental control and life support system and other hardware. The external second-floor platform allows flexibility for test and support hardware. Test operations follow stringent processes by a certified test team for both human and non-human testing. project management, analysis, design, acquisition, fabrication, assembly, and test certification services are available for facility buildups to support Hestia research. Hestia offers close proximity to key stakeholders, including astronauts, human research program, mission operations, safety and mission assurance, and the engineering directorate. So Hestia was formed in fiscal year 15, and the goal is to provide a demonstration of in situ resource utilization and environmental control and life support system cross-discipline technologies. And the test series conducted in September 2015. So the goals for 2016 were to begin to transform the 20-foot chamber facility into a 4-person Mars habitat analog capable of subatmospheric operation at elevated O2 concentrations, to work closely with environmental control, life support, habitation, and human research groups planning to execute evaluations in the 20-foot chamber in support of deep space research. And the products of fiscal year 16 identified representative environmental control life support systems schematic for a 4-person Mars habitat, to develop a system schematic for a 20-foot chamber buildup and support, preliminary habitation outfitting plan to support both short and long duration human evaluations, develop a master build plan to aid in laying out future facility buildups in the coming years, and to provide additional test capability through select buildups, for example, to meet depressurization and repressurization rates for the upcoming 2017 year exploration, atmosphere, and EVA pre-breathe protocol validation. So in 2017, the goals and products of that research were to perform facility buildups in support of HRP-sponsored exploration atmosphere. Protocol validation included the following: to demonstrate pressure profiles and O2 control to achieve 10.2 psia, 26% O2, and 8.2 psia and 34% O2. Demonstrate simulated EVAs at 4.3 psia, and provide habitation provisions, which were 5 11-day human evaluations on clothing, exercise, food and nourishment, hygiene and waste control, lighting, privacy communications, and sleep quarters. They also, based on a Mars 4-person environmental control life support system schematic identified in 2016, used SysML performance model to size the chamber for projected environmental control life support system hardware to be tested in future system-level evaluations, to continue to work closely with environmental control and life support, habitation, and other HRP groups in support of deep space research. So let me reset. So for 2018 and beyond, some goals are to perform facility buildups in support of environmental control and life support system technology performance and habitat outfitting research, with builds to power, data, thermal, physical, potable water, wastewater, etc., and unique builds to support specific habitation research, long duration stays, for example, months, for command and control, clothing and support functions, entertainment, exercise, food and nourishment, including food preparation in a galley, hygiene and waste control, lighting, privacy communications, secondary structures, and sleep quarters. So there's also a very detailed PowerPoint, which I found, which I could forward to anyone who is interested. If you just Google Hestia, just right below if you just Google Hestia Mars operations, there's a PDF on Mars analog design and Hestia support of future NASA deep space missions PowerPoint, which I just read some select slides from that was put together by the contact Joey Marmolejo and Dave Ewert. I believe that was his name. Let me back up. Mike Ewert, sorry, Jose Marmolejo and Mike Ewert, which are the NASA Crew and Thermal Systems Division, and this PowerPoint was from an AIAA technical symposium in May of 2016. So it has more details, which are a little hard to go into unless you're looking at the visuals. So I encourage you to look up the PowerPoint so you can see more details on the visuals. Again, just Google Hestia Mars operations and you'll find it. So some other things that the basic breakdown of the 20-foot chamber is it breaks down into 3 basic levels. Level 1 has repair, exercise, and environmental control and life support system. Level 2 has medical, science, hygiene, and also has ECLSS. And level 3 has quarters, galley, social space, and command. If you look at the diagram for it, the 2 middle levels are only about 7 feet high. So it is very tight quarters, and as someone mentioned on the chat, it does look like a very stubby submarine. So it really is a fascinating build, and it plays into the Hestia focus with Mars surface operations. There's an in situ resource utilization module. There's a rover, and then another building for the Mars Ascent vehicle, and then the Hestia is the other building for the habitat. So there's a very good schematic that shows how these four objects will interact with one another. Again, you can read up on this by going to www.nasa.gov/analogs/Hestia Hotel Echo Sierra Tango India Alpha. So hopefully this has piqued your interest in wanting to read more about the NASA analog missions. So at this time, I will conclude my report, and so next month I will bring information on NVHAB, which is another analog mission. So hopefully this is interesting to you and make you want to read more. So this is KF5PDS, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Let me turn the net back out and see if Bill has arrived. M5BB, if you'd like to give your National Space Society events and activities report, we'd love to hear from you. So N5BB, this is KF5PDS to N5 Bravo Bravo.
Buddy, this is N5BB. I got lost earlier because you disappeared for a while, and I didn't know if the repeater went down or whatever. So if you were calling me during that, it didn't hear you. It didn't hear anything for a while. Anyway, I don't have too much to report about the National Space Society because I wasn't able to be at the last meeting. I was out of town. But the next meeting is going to be on, let me get my calendar up here. The local chapter will meet on the second Sunday of October, which is Sunday, October the 14th, about 3:30 p.m. at Spring Creek Barbecue on 183 in Austin at Beltline, across the street from Irving Mall. Don't yet know the topic of that meeting. I do have a document from the National Space Society here, which is a presentation about the, I can find it here, had it just a moment ago, about the activities, let me do it here. is the activities coming up projected in later this year in space. As you may realize, there has been a interaction there at the asteroid Ryugu, the Hayabusa 2 lander, and that, last I heard, seemed to be going pretty good. There's supposed to be some additional launches in November of various commercial spacecraft, and there's supposed to be a solar sail launch in November. OSIRIS-REx is going to arrive at asteroid Bennu, I believe, in December the 3rd. And in the second half of this year, there's supposed to be a reuse of Block 5 Falcon 9 launcher, the first flight of the Virgin Galactic Launcher 1. Spaceship 2 should go up and cross the Kármán line, get into the edge of space. New Shepard, I'm not sure what that is supposed to fly with a crew. There's supposed to be a Boeing commercial crew demo flight. And there's supposed to be a SpaceX commercial crew demo flight. And all these things are supposed to occur in the second half here of the year. So a lot of things happening in space, a lot of commercial and government launches and things coming up. The solar sail is supposed to go up on Falcon Heavy, and it's supposed to, I've got a picture of it here, or a drawing of it. The Air Force is setting this up. They're paying for it. The Planetary Society evidently was involved with building the solar sail. And SpaceX Falcon Heavy is going to do the launching from Florida. So, again, this is a certification. They're moving toward the Air Force certifying use of the Falcon Heavy launch rocket, which is huge. And it's Block 5 technology. And again, they're going to launch the solar sail up there to test how it works. OSIRIS-REx was launched September in 2016, and it is it's a spacecraft that's going to visit asteroids Bennu, B-E-N-N-U, and it's supposed to arrive on December the 3rd of this year. This is a NASA program with Lockheed that built it, and the United Launch Associates launched it. Bennu is a C-type carbonaceous asteroid with a 1 in 2,700 chance of striking Earth between 2175 and 2199. So that's one of the reasons they're going up to look at the asteroid. I guess I had more than I thought I did. That's all in 5BB.
Great. Well, thank you, Bill. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened with audio earlier, but I think it got straightened out. I think it just Echolink needed a reboot or something. So apologize for not getting through, but we're through now. So thank you for that great report. And at this time, I will call on Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll see if we have additional check-ins, and then give our report on what we can see in the sky over the next couple of weeks. This is KF5PDS to KE5ICX.
Thanks, Billy. This is KE5ICX. I'll take additional check-ins. RF, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. Please come now. We'll take check-ins over Echolink. Echolink only. Please come now. Okay, I will continue on with the next section for tonight's net, and this is what you can see in the sky this evening and over the next couple of weeks. Both reports I have to give come from earthsky.org/tonight. You get the same information every night. They even have for the entire week or 7 days ahead. So if you go to earthsky.org/tonight, you get the same information I'm going to report on. And then the second report comes from the U.S. Naval Observatory in Washington, D.C., and they give you an entire week of information. Or you can go to w5sc.org, and you can see exactly what we're going to be talking about right now. There is a drawing. It shows east, mid to late evening, and this is the description I have for it. On September 28th, 29th, and 30th of 2018, watch for the waning gibbous moon sweeps eastward through the constellation Taurus the Bull. The bright moon might make it tough to see all the starlit figure of the bull on these nights, but you should be able to make out Aldebaran, Taurus' brightest star, as well as the tiny, misty, dipper-shaped Pleiades star cluster. Taurus is the far northern constellation of the zodiac, thus that fact causes these stars to rise at an earlier hour in the northern hemisphere than in the southern hemisphere. Farther north you live, the earlier the Taurus climbs above your northeast horizon, and the farther south you live, the later Taurus comes up. If you're not one to stay up late, get up before daybreak to view the moon and Taurus in the pre-dawn sky. From the northern hemisphere, the moon and Taurus, two major signposts, Aldebaran and Pleiades, may well be up before your bedtime. From temperate latitudes in the southern hemisphere, Taurus won't be up until very late evening or fairly close to the midnight hour. Travels in front of Taurus, or any other constellation of the zodiac for that matter. The moon can travel anywhere from 5 degrees north to 5 degrees south of the ecliptic. For the next several years, the moon will remain south of the ecliptic in its monthly travels in front of Taurus the Bull. Recently, on September 3rd, 2018, the moon occulted, or passed in front of Aldebaran, presenting the final occultation of the monthly occultation series that started on January 29, 2015. But month by month and year by year, the moon's trajectory will slowly but surely shift northward as it goes through Taurus the Bull. In fact, for the next 15 years, the moon will be sweeping in between Aldebaran and Alcyon, Pleiades' brightest star. The monthly occultation series involving the moon and Pleiades stars Alcyon will take place on September 5th, 2023 until July 7th, 2029. I think I'm busy that day, I'm not sure. The bottom line is September 28th, 29th, and 30th, watch for the bright, waning gibbous moon journey eastward through the constellation Taurus the Bull. This from the U.S. Naval Observatory. You can go to usno.navy.mil, or you can just type in U.S. Naval Observatory and Sky This Week, those 6 words, and you should be able to find it. The moon drifts into the morning sky this week, waning into the last quarter phase, which will occur on October 2nd at 5:45 Eastern Daylight. Luna spends the first few evenings among the faint stars of the autumnal constellations, then slides into rising winter stars by the week's end. Watch the moon pass in front of the bright star Aldebaran, which we talked about, during the overnight hours of the 29th and 30th. The pair will be closest at 2 a.m. Eastern Daylight on the 30th. On October, it begins you'll find Luna passing through the middle of the bright stars of the Great Winter Circle if you're up before sunrise. As the moon retreats into the morning sky, the window for darkness opens into the early evenings. This affords an opportunity to catch the last glimpse of the summer Milky Way, which stretches across the sky from northeast to southwest. At 9 p.m., the 3 bright stars of the summer triangle asterism are overhead, and it is this part of the sky that you will notice that the galaxy appears to split into 2 distinct parts. The so-called Great Rift in the Milky Way is formed by vast clouds of non-luminous dust and gas that is distributed along the galaxy's equator. These clouds block the light of more distant stars, but they also provide the building blocks of future stellar systems. If you sweep the Milky Way with a pair of binoculars and a low-power Richfield telescope, You note areas where the stars are forming in luminous knots of glowing gas. In these regions, the powerful ultraviolet radiation of these young stars cause the gas in the surrounding dark clouds to glow. You also find more evolved star clusters throughout the Milky Way. Some of these are tightly packed groups of thousands of stars, while others are widely scattered associations. One of the more striking examples of the latter may be found between the bright star Altair, the southernmost star of the southern triangle, to Albireo, the beautiful double star located in the center of the triangle asterism, commonly called the coat hanger. The cluster is best seen in binoculars and consists of about a dozen stars in a very distinctive array. If you have a telescope, look for the more distant and densely packed star cluster, NGC 6802, just to the east of the coat hanger's easternmost star. By midnight, the Milky Way heels over into the western sky, and with it, the bright stars of summer. The scene shifts to more scattered, fainter constellations that make up the constellations of autumn. None of them are particularly bright, but one large grouping approaches the meridian high in the south. From light-polluted skies, you should still be able to make out the large square made up of second-magnitude stars in an otherwise near-empty sky. This square is part of the constellation of Pegasus, the mythical flying horse from a Perseus legend. The Great Square provides a good indicator of the quality of the sky. Urban sky watchers can see little more than the stars of the square itself, but observers at a good dark sky should be able to see about a dozen faint luminaries within the asterism's boundaries. Pegasus will be the focus of the upcoming October campaign for the Citizen Science Globe at Night program. You'll want to Google that and get the complete information about it. And to the planets. Venus is on the verge of dropping out of the evening sky, even though she's at her brightest for the year and is still at a considerable elongation from the sun. She is only 10 degrees above the horizon when Old Sol sets. Venus herself goes below the horizon shortly after 8 p.m., so you'll only have a brief time to find her in the southwest. Jupiter is also headed for a speedy exit from the evening sky. Old Jove now sets around 9 p.m., so your best views of the giant planet will be restricted to the twilight hour. Saturn lingers in the evening sky along the departing stars of summer. The ringed planet sets at around 11:30 p.m., so you'll have a couple of hours to get a good view of him with the telescope. Saturn lies at a very interesting part of the sky that's dominated by a dense Milky Way star cloud. Using binoculars, just look to the right of Saturn and you'll see two of the most popular star clusters of nebulae in the sky, the Lagoon Nebula and the Trifid Nebula. Finally, Mars brings up the rear of the bright planet parade. Although he is fading rapidly from his opposition glory of late July, he is still a striking object in the southern sky. His distinctive ruddy tint stands out in the part of the sky that is notable for its faint star patterns. You'll be able to enjoy him until around 2 a.m. when he sets and leaves the sky to the rising bright stars of winter. And that's it from my report this evening. This is KE5ICX, back to net control.
Great, thank you, Tom. This is KF5PDS, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Let me reset. Please stand by. All right. Next up, we have the featured constellations. So at this time, I'd like to remind you that you can follow along on w5fc.org with the sky maps and notes and images. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Carolyn, KC50ZT. The net is yours.
Billy, and with all the rain lately, I thought we would do one of the water-related constellations, Pisces the fish. It's one of the zodiac constellations, and it's the 14th constellation in size. And actually, it's associated with fish in many cultures. Babylonians saw it as a pair of fish joined by a cord. The Romans had a myth of Venus and Cupid, who tied themselves with a rope and transformed into fish to escape the monster Typhon. And there's a similar story in Greek mythology. The Aphrodite and her son Eros called to the water nymphs for help and jumped in the river. And one legend, one version, two fishes came to the rescue and carried them on their backs to safety. In the other version, the mother and son were themselves transformed into fish. Orient yourself. If you look at the chart, there are some asterisms. One is Pisces boreas, the northern fish. Pisces austrinus, the southern fish. And then connecting them, you have the north cord and the south cord. And then there's a pretty obvious, it's called a circlet in the south fish, which is easy to spot. And there's a few stars that we want to look at. One is Eta Piscium, that's the brightest star, at magnitude 3.6, and it's a Class G yellow giant. And then we have Gamma, also a Class G yellow giant, magnitude 3.69. And it is part of that asterism, the circlet, this represents the head of the western fish. And Gamma, though, won't be around in the sun's vicinity for long. This star moves about 3/4 of an arc-second across the sky every year, and that's sort of fast for stars anyway. Included a chart in case you want to try some variable observing. We have TX Piscium, a variable, one of the reddest stars known. It's a Class C carbon star, and it's a lake-type star. It resembles a red giant or sometimes a red dwarf. It has an atmosphere that's more carbon than oxygen, but it varies between 4.9 and 5.5, and this makes a nice binocular variable. So if you want to try that, there's a chart there for you to use. And Pisces has quite a few deep sky objects. Our first one we'll look at is M74, a beautiful spiral galaxy. Unfortunately, it's magnitude 10, so you need a larger scope. It has two very clearly defined spiral arms, and it's a textbook example of this type of spiral galaxy. It has a low surface brightness, all right, and like I said, it is one of the most difficult Messier objects to observe. It helps if you look at 1.5 degrees east-northeast of the star I mentioned, Eta Piscium. And it'd be worth it. 2 supernovae have been observed in M74 in 2002 and again in 2003. The one in 2002 was a rare type 1C supernova, also known as hypernova. It's been discovered in recent years. These are supernovae with a substantially higher amount of energy than regular supernova and are believed to be the origin of some of the long-duration gamma-ray bursts, some of the most energetic events observed in space. In March of 2005, an ultraluminous X-ray source was discovered in M74. It emitted more X-ray power than a neutron star in periods of about every 2 hours, indicating the presence of an intermediate black hole. And moving on, if you look close to the border with Pegasus, you find this is a long name. It's CL0024 plus 1654. Now this is a large galaxy cluster composed mainly of yellow elliptical and spiral galaxies. And if that's not all, the cluster lenses a galaxy located behind it, which results in arc-like images of the galaxy in the background. In the photo, the distinctive shape of this background galaxy, they think it is just forming. This has allowed astronomers to deduce that it has separate images as if you were looking at the clock at 4, 10, 11, and 12 o'clock from the center of the galaxy. And a blue smudge near the center of the cluster is likely another image of the same galaxy. And that's a very interesting photo to explore. And moving on to the north, we have NGC 383, also known as 3C31. It's a double radio galaxy and faint, magnitude 13.4. It has a quasar-like appearance and a strong radio source, and it has some long radio jets created by a supermassive black hole at the heart of the galaxies. And if that's not enough, there's 4 galaxies located nearby. These are all NGC numbers, 379, 380, 385, and 384. And these are believed to be closely associated with this. And like I say, this is up in the North Fish. Next object, number 4, is a pair of interacting galaxies. NGC 7714. That's a spiral galaxy at magnitude 12.2. And NGC 7715. It's thought to be either an edge-on spiral or an irregular galaxy. They don't know yet. But worth, if you can see it, trying to keep an eye, because a supernova was discovered in 7714. This was discovered in September of 1999. And this galaxy, the area is easy to find. It's located in the circlet asterism. Final object NGC 520 is magnitude 12.2, and they think it's a product of actually a collision between two disk galaxies that started 300 million years ago. It shows the middle stages of the merge. The disk of the parent galaxies have merged together, but the nuclei have not yet coalesced. The photo shows an odd-looking tail of stars and a prominent dust lane that runs diagonally across the center of the image and obscures the galaxy. This is one of the brightest galaxy pairs on the sky and can be observed with a small telescope. In fact, don't be fooled, it has the appearance of a comet, almost. But you might also find it listed in ARC's catalog of peculiar galaxies as ARC 157. But it's a beautiful sight, too. And anyways, Pisces has a lot of some of them, I mean, like I say, most of them are faint, but they have some very worthwhile objects to take a look at and try to find. So take a tour through it. I know you'll enjoy it. And unless there's any questions, Billy, I'll turn it back to you, KC50ZT.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carolyn. Does anybody have any questions for Carolyn about tonight's constellation before we move on? If so, please come now with your call sign. Okay, not hearing any, so at this time I'll turn the net over to Brenda, WB5OZL, for a report on recent astronomical discoveries. Brenda, the net is yours.
Billy, probably going to cut and just do one article tonight because we're kind of running late. And the article's entitled How a Tiny Curiosity Motor Identified a Massive Martian Dust Storm. There's no shortage of eyeballs, human and robotic, pointed at Mars. Scientists are constantly exploring the red planet from telescopes on Earth, plus the 6 spacecraft circling the planet from its orbit and 2 roving its surface. So when dust filled the atmosphere during a recent planet-wide dust storm, observations were plentiful. NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, MRO, provided the earliest insights on May 30th when it observed an accumulation of dust in the atmosphere near Perseverance Valley, where NASA's Opportunity rover is exploring. The increasingly hazy storm, the biggest since 2007, forced Opportunity to shut down science operations by June 8th, given that sunlight couldn't penetrate the dust to power the rover's solar panels. Scientists are anxiously waiting for the roving explorer to regain power and phone home. Meanwhile, on June 5th, evidence quietly materialized on the other side of the globe that the storm was growing and beginning to affect Gale Crater, the research site of NASA's Curiosity rover. The storm was officially classified as global on June 20th. It came from an unexpected source, an actuator or motor that powers a lid to the funnel that takes in samples of powdered Martian rock dropped in by Curiosity's drill. The samples then undergo chemical analysis by the Portable Sample Analysis at Mars, SAM, chemistry lab, designed by scientists at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, and built into Curiosity's belly. Benito Prats, a Goddard electromechanical engineer, noticed the dust storm slowly reaching Curiosity through the continuous temperature readings he collected from actuator sensors. All of my charts showed the dust storm effect on the actuator because it's exposed. He's sitting out there on the rubber deck, said Pratt. All of a sudden, I saw the daytime temperature drop really quickly. Pratt observed in the chart above temperature dropping during the day and rising at night above normal levels. This happens during a dust storm because less sun penetrates the dusty atmosphere during the day, cooling the surface of the planet, while at night the warmer, dusty atmosphere hits the ground. There are other tools on the rover that track the weather. The rover environmental monitoring system measures air temperature, atmospheric pressure, and other environmental conditions, which were also beginning to indicate accumulating dust. Unlike solar-powered Opportunity, Curiosity is powered by a plutonium generator, so its operations were not affected by the dust shade. The temperature changes also didn't affect SAM actuators. There are 2 sample funnels. I think they mean funnels, in case one gets clogged, since they like warmer, less extreme temperatures. SAM analyzes Martian rocks and soils in search of organic materials. In order for SAM to work properly, its actuators need to be at minus 40 degrees Celsius. This is why Pratt keeps a close eye on their temperature. When Martian temperatures in spring dip to minus 60 degrees Celsius, at night, SAM heaters warm up the motors to lift the funnel lid for sample drops. After Pratt discovered the effects of the dust storm in his temperature data, he combined it with historic actuator temperature averages to estimate when the dust storm would abate. At Sol 2125, that's July 28th, I noticed a linear trend, he said, so I said, okay, I can predict that Sol 2180, September 23rd, is going to be when we're going to get out of the dust storm and the temperature will return back to normal, although I later updated that to Sol 2175, September 18th. His prediction was consistent with more formal ones and matches recent actuator temperature readings, which were back to normal around September 18th, indicating that the dust over Gale Crater settled by then. A majority of the dust also has settled at Perseverance Valley. From any source, even the most unexpected, are useful to planetary scientists, given we still don't know why some Martian dust storms last for months and grow massive, while others stay small and last only a week. Scientists hope to be able to forecast these global events, like they can forecast hurricanes on Earth, in order to better understand the planet's current and past climate and to properly design robotic and human missions to the planet, NASA scientists say. There are some things about Mars that make it more predictable, and some that make it less so than Earth, says Scott D. Guzewicz, Goddard atmospheric scientist leading Curiosity's dust storm innovation. I can estimate 2 years in advance the temperature, air pressure, and whether there's going to be dust or clouds in the air during the non-dusty season anywhere on the planet, he said. But during the dusty season in locations that have dust storms, I can't give you any protection at all that there will be a dust storm on one day and not another. All right, from ScienceDaily.com, back to that, WB5OZL.
Great, thank you very much, Brenda. This is KF5PDS, your net control for Skynet. All right, at this time, I'll turn that over to Tony, NT5TM, if you'll give us a report on space exploration and space history.
Thank you, Billy. I'll mention a few general anniversaries and then get to one big one. On September 29th, 1962, Canada became the third country to build and launch its own satellite after the United States and the Soviet Union with the ionospheric research satellite Alouette 1. Alouette does not mean anything about breakfast and doesn't have anything to do with Chaos Spies. It means Skylark and was thought to be an appropriate name for the first satellite. In 4:30 on September 24th, NASA legend John Young was born. He flew on Gemini 3, Gemini 10, I really should say them all, Gemini, Apollo 10, Apollo 16, and the first and ninth launches of the Space Shuttle. He was the only person to fly in the Gemini, Apollo, and Shuttle programs, the ninth person to walk on the Moon, and one of only 3 people to orbit the Moon twice. The Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, he became very critical of the Challenger launch decision and was fired upward by being deprived of his astronaut status and made a NASA Associate Officer for Safety. Many of us have noted those little pointy bits on top of rockets like the Saturn V or the Mercury. That's a launch escape tower. It's there to pull the astronauts away from the big fire if, well, there's a big fire and so they decide not to go to space today. Only once has a launch escape system actually been used to pull astronauts away from a big fire. This was what would have been Soyuz T-10. The capsule was never really assigned a flight number. It was simply known as Soyuz 7K ST number 16L. A turbo pump was accidentally started before any fuel was available to flow through it. Resulted in overheating followed by a massive fuel leak and the large fire, which if you're watching Tom there, you can see on your screen now. The astronauts could not see outside of their vehicle and did not understand what was happening. They felt an odd vibration and swaying and then an abrupt jerk as the launch escape system pulled their capsule away from the combusting booster, which burned for another 20 hours. Commander later reported that the first thing they did was disable the voice recorder using the circuit breakers so that mission control would never learn how much they were swearing. Our big anniversary for this week is the 60th anniversary of NASA on September 25th, 1958. T. Keith Glennon, the first NASA administrator, announced that NASA would become fully operational on October 1st, 1958. There have been lots of firsts and milestones in NASA's history. This year is full of top 10 lists. Here's my list of some favorite historical feats. Of course, my list goes up to 11. Time constraints, I'll be extremely brief. I may go into some of these later on a future net. I'd like to urge you to look some of them up on Wikipedia or your favorite reference site. Explorer 1 was launched in January of 1958. This was only the second satellite ever built by anyone to do science. The Explorer program continues today with satellites focused on single missions without a lot of extraneous extra payload. TESS, the Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite, is also known, for example, as Explorer 95. 1964, Ranger 7 hit the moon. Well, but that was on purpose. Rangers 0 through 6 had all either exploded, overheated, turned off in space, or crashed into the ocean. Ranger 7 was a great success because NASA had to learn not just how to build satellites, which they kind of already knew how to do, but how to manage a project so that it would do something. Mariners 9 and 10 went in opposite directions, and they're two of my favorite deep space probes. Mariner 9 orbited Mars with Mariner Mars 71. It was the first spacecraft to ever orbit another planet, and the high-resolution pictures it took are still a key part of Martian science. We have to look at these high-resolution pictures to see what's changed in all the intervening years. Mariner 10 is just an amazing little spacecraft that could. It was the first gravitational assist to get from one planet to another. You see, it was also known as Mariner Venus Mercury. It was the first spacecraft to study Mercury close-up, the first spacecraft to use solar sailing. And it also kept breaking down a lot. It was one of the first spacecraft whose mission control team pulled a full mission out of such a really failure-prone piece of erratic space hardware. But it was the little spacecraft that could. quickly mention that we all know the Mercury 7, but it's worth looking up the Mercury network. It later became the Manned Spaceflight Network. Soviet mission planners for the first few space flights had to get their data and telemetry in the form of radiograms, just like you get in the National Traffic System, delivered from distant tracking stations and ships. We built the world's first high-speed data network. Gemini 5 was the first spacecraft to have its own mission patch, an official one, the first use of fuel cells back in 1965. It was the mission that set the goal of 8 days or bust and made it. This American spacecraft had stayed in orbit for just a day or so. 8 days would get them to the moon and back. Speaking of which, Apollo 8 in 1968 was the first circumlunar flight. It demonstrated the first use of tracking and communication techniques for a crewed deep space, circumlunar spacecraft. Reading Soviet rocket scientist memoirs, this was the point when the Soviets really felt the space race was lost. Shouldn't forget Apollo 13, the triumph of ground support, as engineers and planners worked around the clock with little sleeper food to figure out how to use the gray tape, how to get the lunar module off of the command module without being able to use rockets. The crew had to get home, and they had very little time to plan.
Operational.
Voyager in 1977 was a very well-planned program. Voyager 1 and 2 are still doing science today. In fact, the Voyager program was a triumph of forward planning. Congress didn't want to pay for a full tour of the solar system, so NASA cleverly built in extra big antennas and extra big fuel tanks in the hopes that they could later ask for more money. It worked. Don't forget Skylab. The International Space Station is wonderful, but Skylab was the first thing in space that you would actually want to visit. If you go look at the training mock-up down at the Johnson Space Center, it's big, it's roomy. Skylab had the first working toilet in space, the first shower, the first digital calculator so that astronauts didn't have to rely on slide rules. It had a safe weighing more than a ton to protect film from cosmic rays. It was the first homestead in space. And Billy, it did have an analog mission, the Skylab Medical Experiment Altitude Test. 56 days were spent by astronaut trainees in a low-pressure environment on Earth. Finally, I'd like to mention the Hubble Space Telescope, which I often think is the most successful scientific instrument ever constructed. It has wide-angle sharpness, not like adaptive optics, and since the sun doesn't rise on you in space if you don't want it to, it can just look away from the sun. It can stare at a target for hundreds of hours. Now, we kind of live in the golden age of space exploration. There's lots of awesome stuff I couldn't mention and lots of awesome stuff going on. I don't think anyone who planned Pioneer or Voyager could have imagined New Horizons operating autonomously for years at a time and sending back high-speed data from past the orbit of Pluto. And who knows, maybe someday the James Webb Space Telescope will even fly. It's been a great 60 years. The best is yet to come. This is NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. And yeah, thanks. Way to go mentioning the analog mission. I believe that was Hestia that was used for that because it was used for several things, including Skylab, Apollo, and other missions. So way to go. Cool. Awesome. It's great to see all those things tie together. I also want to quickly mention that John Young also has the added distinction of being the only astronaut to smuggle a corned beef sandwich into space, which he did on Gemini 3 with Gus Grissom back in 1965. And that's a fun read. There's a space.com web article about how John Young smuggled a corned beef sandwich into space. Okay, yeah, we're running over on time, so I just want to quickly mention about satellite passages. You can go to heavens-above.com, put in your location, and see what passages of satellites and the ISS are visible in your area. Again, that's heavens-above.com. At this time, I'll turn the net over quickly to Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll see if we have any last final check-ins, and give me a final count for this evening's net. This is KF5PDS to KE5ICX.
November 5, Whiskey Oscar India, William and Alan.
And 5 WOI, William and Allen. Additional check-ins, please come out.
Is Kilo Golf 5, Echo India Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas.
Right, there was a double. It may have resolved, well, it did not resolve itself since I know there were at least two. I've got KG5EIU, David in St. Paul. I think I heard Crandall in the background. I may be wrong. I had to turn up the volume, but there was a dead carrier as well. So whoever the station was that came in before David, please come again. I got you that time, K5KOP, Philip and Crandall. And Philip, your audio is way, way down. I thought there was a double in there, but in actuality, you have an excellent signal, but very, very low audio. Anyone else, Echolink or otherwise, please come down. I have 25 check-ins, including you and I. This is KE5ICX, back to net.
Great, copy that. We had 25 hams participating on the air tonight, so thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KF5PDS, Billy, and I'll be closing the net at 22:35 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. So 7-3 everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And remember to stay tuned for the Afterglow Movie Net, where we'll be discussing 1960s Roger Corman film, The Last Woman on Earth. 73, everyone.
This is KE5ICX. We'll take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back at 41 local time, 10:41. We'll be back for Last Woman on Earth. to begin the Afterglow Movie Net. Tonight's movie is The Last Woman on Earth, or sometimes referred to as Last Woman on Earth from 1960. While you collect your thoughts and decide if you really want to check in or not, let me give you some of the details about this movie. This is KE5ICX. I get to be net control. This week for the Afterglow Movie Net, The Last Woman on Earth appeared, is a 1960 American science fiction film that was produced and directed by the legendary Roger Corman. Tells the story of 3 survivors of a mysterious apocalypse which appears to have wiped out all human life on Earth. The screenplay was by Robert Towne, who also appears in the film under the pseudonym Edward Wayne. The music was composed and conducted by Ronald Stein. The film was originally released as a double feature with a previously reviewed movie on this net, The Little Shop of Horrors. Here's the plot. Harold Gurn is a successful businessman from New York who is constantly in legal trouble, is spending a holiday in Puerto Rico with his attractive wife, Evelyn, whom he married between trials, and that's in quotes. We are joined by Martin Joyce, Harold's lawyer, who has come to discuss the latest indictments. Harold invites him along on a boat trip, during which all 3 try out some newly bought scuba diving equipment. When they resurface, they are unable to breathe without using their scuba tanks. They climb back into their boat and find Manuel, the crewman, dead, apparently of asphyxiation. Upon rolling ashore, they enter the jungle. With their air running out, they discover that the foliage gives off oxygen that they can breathe. Then they go into town, they find nobody left alive and cannot contact anyone by radio. It dawns upon the 3 that they might be the only survivors in the area, maybe in the entire world. The domineering Harold takes charge. They concentrate on becoming sufficient, and the 2 men fish as marine creatures have survived. Later they also find living insects and baby chicks, presumably newly hatched. Feels that in the long run they will have to move north to a colder climate to avoid problems with insects and food preservation and increase their chances of meeting other survivors. Soon the love triangle develops. Martin points out to Harold that neither of the latter's marriage certificates nor his money means anything to anyone anymore. One day, while Harold is out fishing by himself, Evelyn gives in to her attraction to Martin. When Harold finds out, he beats Martin and orders him to leave. Evelyn hops in the car and the 2 lovers drive off. Harold chases after them in a truck. At the harbor, another fight breaks out when Martin refuses to tell Harold where his wife is. Martin eventually runs into a church where Evelyn has been waiting. There, he dies of his injuries, and so does his plot. The 2 survivors are left wondering what they will do, where they will go, and where will it lead them. That ends, and that's it. That was the plot for Last Woman on Earth, or its alternate title, The Last Woman on Earth, in Vistascope. This is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. I'll go ahead and take check-ins. If you'd like to join us, you just let me know your call sign, your name. Did you see the movie or not? Please come now.
This is N5BB in Irving. Bill, I did see that movie.
This is November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. I spent my time studying space history and did not see the movie.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra Kilo, Burl in Dallas. I did see the movie.
Is Whiskey 5, Echo Bravo, Bravo, David in Dallas.
05, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto. Yes, I did see this movie.
Alrighty then, I will need one fill in all this. There was a double. It may have resolved itself. We'll find out. I've got N5BB, Bill in Irving. Yep, he saw it. NT5TM, Tony Dallas. No, he did not, but I'll bet you may have some comments about post-apocalyptic films. We'll leave you in reserve. KF5TSK, Burrow in Dallas. Yep. KC5OZT, Miss Carroll in Louisville. Another affirmative. Now, there was a double at this point. I've got W5EBB after that. Was there another station after Miss Carolyn? If you're not sure, we'll get you on the next round. Go ahead.
Mike in Richardson. I did not see the movie, but I think I missed a good one.
All right, that sounds about right from the signal. So I think you were the double there, Mike. I got you. KG5P over in Richardson. No, you didn't see the movie, but I bet you've got post-apocalyptic things to say. I keep you on the list, and we'll call on you later. W5EVB, David in Dallas. I don't know. Did you see the movie, Dave? David?
Affirmative, W5EBB.
Got you on the list. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda in DeSoto. You saw the movie. Additional check-ins, please come now.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Jay near Weatherford, and I did see the film.
This is N5HYP, Tom in Irving. I lost my breath for a little while, but I did see the movie.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy M. Sherman on Echolink. Yes, I saw the film.
Let me get the Echolink folks here. I got KG5BZWJ in Weatherford. Yep, you saw it. N5HYP, Tom, reluctantly says yes over in Irving. K5PDS, Miss Billy and Sherman. Thank you for a wonderful net, by the way. Affirmative, she saw the movie. Okay, one more round, and then we go to the top of the list. Anybody else who would like to check in? You don't necessarily have to see the last woman on Earth, but if you did, it's okay. Well, this is the support group for bad films. Please come now.
Item Mary Sierra, JJ in Carrollton. Yes, I did see the movie.
I got N5 IMS JJ over in Carrollton. And you did see the movie. Okay. A moment of silence for this film. And that's enough. Okay, this is how we do this thing. We're going to go ahead and talk about plot. That will be our first topic. And then after that, we'll talk about characterization. And then after that, if we're still awake, we'll talk about the special effects, storyline, music, all of that. Usually by then we're pretty much tired and ready for Betty Bye. So we'll start with what did you think of the plot? The first person on the list was, and hailing from Irving, is Bill, N5BB. Bill, plot, what did you think, or not?
This is N5BB. Well, the basic plot was super simple, although it was mysterious in that the reason for the lack of oxygen, apparently, whatever was causing the difficulty in breathing, it appeared to be oxygen since it affected their breathing, it affected engines running, it affected lighting a match. But the reason for that was not explained, and the science involving them getting near some leaves and suddenly they could breathe and light a match, that doesn't work like that. And then suddenly when they got into to the city in Puerto Rico, they could breathe easily, but everybody was dead. So the basic science of all the oxygen mysteriously disappearing and then mysteriously coming back a few hours later made absolutely no sense. 0 sense. So that's so much for the science of the plot. The concept of being possibly the last people on Earth, of course, has been in many other movies over time. Everything else was a love triangle thing, and I thought it was rather sexist, actually. The woman at the end seemed to suddenly be happy to get back with her husband, even though she had been running off with this other guy. So they're kind of making her out to be a bimbo in that sense. And she was helpless without the men to keep things going around them. So, I don't know. I thought the plot was weak. N5BB.
Hey, thanks, Bill. I took some notes for future reference when it's my turn. NT5TM, Tony, you did not see the movie. I assume you're still there. If you're not, that's okay. If you're not there, just tell me you aren't. Otherwise, do you have any comments about post-apocalyptic films, or if you'd like to listen, or what? Of course, you can always interject. NT5TM.
I did not see the movie, and I would have actually thought it was fun to suffer with everybody, but I just didn't use my time well today. I took a Tony vacation reading history stuff. In general, the mistake almost all post-apocalyptic movies make is they show people eating, for example, canned food. Just ask any member of the British 1845 Franklin expedition. Canned food does not retain its vitamins indefinitely. You get scurvy. So mostly I'll be listening, but I may have some comments later. NT5TS.
Very good. I knew you'd have a comment, Tony. Canned food isn't very well canned when it's all said and done. And there was discussion about that, but we'll come back to that later. KF5TSK. Burl, you saw this fine film. Plot, please.
This KF5TSK. You know, the first thing that I thought was I kept expecting to see a monster, a creature, something toward the end. You know, it was like I was disappointed that, you know, this was a scientific film, and about the only thing that was scientific was, you know, a lack of oxygen. You know, there was no odor. They really didn't have any trouble breathing or talking. It was like, just believe us, this is how it would be. As far as, you know, no communication, you know, they turned on the radio and it was full of QRM. And I was like, well, if there's no one left, why is there so much QRM? You know, there's no TV. Well, there's no TV set in the whole picture, so I think that was, you know, rather strange from 1960. I think that's all I have for now. KFI-TSK back to net.
And this is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. We're talking about The Last Woman on Earth, a fine film from 1960. Next up is KC5OZT. Miss Carolyn, your thoughts on the plot?
About like everybody else, it seemed awfully weak, and I kept expecting more, and I never did get it. And explaining how the oxygen disappeared, you know, it didn't explain what happened to that, or you know, they just sort of left it hanging, and and it seemed awfully. I didn't like, you know, that he killed the other man, you know, when there was just, if they were the three people left on Earth, and just a minute, let me reset. Just left it hanging like, how do they know that they were the only ones left? They hadn't taken, you know, gone north to, hadn't taken off on the boat like they planned to see if there was anybody else, and they might have found somebody. You know, I kept expecting it to develop on into that, and it never did. And like I say, it just sort of left you hanging there, and unless they planned a sequel, but if anybody saw the first one, I don't think they'd go to see the second one. KH5OZT.
Thank you, Miss Carolyn. The next station, KG5P. Mike, I know you didn't see the movie. Do you have any comments on fine 60s post-apocalyptic films or otherwise? Tony had comments about canned food. What do you got?
Good evening, Tom. KG5P. I'm on my talkie here, so I hope I'm making a repeater, okay? Yeah, I didn't get to... I like these kind of movies, and I like Roger Corman. But I got back in town this week, and I'm trying to catch up with stuff, so I didn't get a chance to see it. I'm taking a calculus course from MIT online, just for fun. I've taken calculus before, no big deal. But I didn't make the movie, but it sounds like it might be interesting, so I may watch it anyway. Back to net, KG5P.
Hey, thanks, Mike, and this is definitely up your alley. You'll love it very much, or hate it, which means you'll love it anyway. Next station, W5EVB. David, you saw the film. Your thoughts on the plot?
The plot was pretty much a biblical metaphor. I mean, you had Evelyn, who was clearly Eve, and then you had basically a Cain and Abel story also between the two men. One kills the other. But you know, it tried to be ambitious in that manner, and it was kind of hit or miss, I guess. But you know, I thought the plot was all right. You know, presumably it was a momentary absence of oxygen which caused everybody but those three to die, or at least that we know of. So could something like that happen on Earth, or could it have happened on Earth? Well, if it did, there would only be a few people, probably not scientists, left over, and they wouldn't know exactly what happened either. Now on Mars, for example, its atmosphere is over 90% carbon dioxide and about 0.14% oxygen. And it has been detected to have momentary brief spikes of methane. Some of the probes have detected that. So, Mars is always kind of the twin of Earth, or it's used to try to understand what could have happened to Mars and might happen to Earth at some point. So, there's a few, interesting angles that you could view this film from if you try real hard. W5EBB.
Thank you, David. Good point. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda and DeSoto, your comments on the fine plot.
Of this movie? Well, they tried. It was so 60s. Everybody smokes. Women run around in high heels, stupidly, and wear these little house dresses. And, you wear a skimpy dress, and I'm cold. Like, well, why didn't you wear something sensible? And I think they didn't have a whole lot of interest in what it would take to survive. They're just basically living off the stores, the stuff that's stored there. How long is that going to last? They need to be learning how to raise crops and navigate and do all kinds of things that they're going to need to know how to do if they're going to survive without once all the stuff runs out. Yeah, I thought the woman was a total bimbo, and I didn't like her at all. She's conniving and sneaky, and she's married, but she's flirting with this guy. That's not right. And then when it comes to a bad end, it's like, well, gee, what did you expect? So I just don't necessarily accept that it had to go the way that it did. The guy had never had a woman before, so why is she so desperate to have one now? Well, we'll travel north and maybe we'll find some women. Think about people that are like lung patients that are on oxygen, or people that were having surgery at the time, or other people that were scuba diving, or maybe people that were flying at 35,000 feet or that lived at 14,000 feet. I can think of all kinds of reasons why someone might not have been subjected to the same environmental issues that these people did. So I believe there would be some people out there, and that all the animals died. The ecological disaster that would happen as everything is unbalanced, I think would be very interesting. Okay, back to that. WB5OZL.
Thank you, Miss Brenda. Let's see. Next up. Let's see. I think we're at the bottom of the list. Oh, wait. No, we're not. Oh, jeez. I'm looking at the wrong list. KG5BZW, Jay over in Weatherford. Near Weatherford. Your comments on the plot.
BZW. Yeah. It's not. There's the rest. How to categorize this? What to say about it? For one, it's. Of course, the science fiction aspect of it is it's really just a wraparound. It's not really. It's not integral to the story. It's. I guess some aspects of that are integral to the story, but they could just as easily have had this story where they're just cut off from the rest of civilization. So it's last woman on Earth. Well, no, last woman in the locality, really. It's a love triangle story. It's a kind of odd love triangle story. I didn't really like the characters. I know we've got a special section for that, but I thought the whole, I mean, to have a love triangle story, you kind of have to like the characters, have likable characters, in my opinion. But I didn't really find them all too likable or remarkable. I was trying to figure out some other information that I can talk about right now, but I just don't really have anything. I'm just gonna have to hand it over to the next person. This is KG5BCW.
Jay, this is KE5ICX. We're talking about the last woman on Earth. We're currently talking about the plot. Think about that. We'll check everybody else in a minute. Let me go down the list. I have next N5HYP, Tom in Irving. He admits to seeing this film. What do you think about the plot?
Hey, this is N5HYP. Holly, I, and Anna saw the movie last night. Plot. I thought it would make a decent Twilight Zone plot if it were condensed down to the 23 minutes worth of time that a half-hour show would have taken. However, the fact that the 23 minutes of actual plot was extended to about 90, and so you had to put up with it in that regard. Yes, it was very, strange about the oxygen going away and then coming back, but Holly was trying to figure out if all the animals died, how'd the chickens survive? Because at one point in time, the lawyer and the woman were out having fun gathering eggs from the chickens. So we're trying to figure that one out. That didn't really kind of make sense. Other parts of the plot that drove me kind of nuts were, okay, everybody was dead. There were all these boats going around, just lying around there for the taking. The lawyer and the woman were heading off to get the other businessman's boat. And they had this big fight. Well, it was because he was taking the woman, but they didn't need to take that boat. They could have taken any boat. They probably could have taken a boat that was closer to where they were than going all the way to that other marina where the boat was. So a lot of the things were contrived here to get to the point of the final showdown. So, like I said, plot-wise, should have probably fit in a 23-minute Twilight Zone, not a 90-minute movie. Back to net. This is N5HYP.
Bill, I don't disagree. KF5 PDS, Miss Billy, I know you've got comments on this fine film. All of them positive, all of them fantastic. Everything that has to be said about this movie, plot-wise, you've got figured out, and you've got all the answers, all positive. Positive, I tell you. Miss Billy, KF5 PDS, your thoughts about the plot?
Well, 3 people lived. That's positive, I guess. Yeah, the plot, super simple, super transparent, somewhat predictable, I guess. Just the whole oxygen thing, yeah, totally implausible. I don't know, I got more to say about character than plot. So I guess the one positive thing is 3 people were still alive. Well, I can't really say that at the end, but 3 people survived the apocalypse, I guess. But I've got definitely more to say about characterization than plot. So I agree with HYP that, yeah, it could have been just a 20 to 25 minute Twilight Zone. It would have made a good short. But yeah, I don't know. It was a long hour and 12 minutes. So with that, I'll return it to you. This is KFI PDS back to.
Thank you, Miss Billy. We'll be waiting for your comments on characterization coming up. N5IMS, JJ and Carrollton, you saw the movie. What did you think of the plot?
First off, it's nice to actually be on the radio this time instead of just texting. Fortunately, I got enough time set aside where I could actually be on the radio this time instead of just texting, which is good. Now, as far as the plot, let me reset. It seemed like they were very dismissive with their explanations, like on the oxygen thing. You know, they actually did discuss that for about 20 seconds and basically just dismissed it. Oh, it was just a big bomb of some kind that went in there and knocked all the oxygen out. You know, yeah, like that would happen and, you know, there wouldn't be other after effects or what have you. And, you know, just doesn't seem to make sense. And, you know, as far as picking up the telephone and, you know, asking for the operator. Well, if everybody's dead, there's not going to be an operator on the other end. So, you know, what is that going to tell you about, you know, the rest of the world being in there if you can't get the hotel operator in the hotel? You know, well, yeah, not a big deal. You know, just didn't make a whole lot of sense. And the other thing that it was surprising is the reason why they had to get out of the ocean from their scuba diving was the lady was scared by a manta ray and fired the gun and hit the lawyer. But once they got out of the ocean back on the boat and she just apologized for wounding him, there was never anything else on the injury. I mean, you know, he was still able to swim, still able to fish, still able to do everything else. Just, you know, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Let me reset again. And you know, the other thing, like at the very end of the movie, which apparently seemed like, you know, several weeks had gone by from the initial episode until that point, but the lawyer was walking down the beach past a dead woman, and, you know, she was not bloated. She was, you know, it looked like she was just laying there asleep or whatever, not, you know, not dead. No sign of rotting, no sign of bloating, and, you know, he just walked by and looked at her like, you know, there was no smell or anything, so, you know, how could she have been there for several weeks if it was like that? You know, just didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. You know, there just seemed to be an awful lot of that going on. Back to the net, N5IMS.
Very good. Thank you, JJ. And it's good to hear you on the air. And we hope to hear you again next week and every Saturday night. Okay, this is KE5ICX to get to big comments. The good news is, if you're going to do this net, you get to write down everybody else's comments and then comment on the comments. So it's not that bad for you being net control. In fact, it's to your advantage. A couple of points. First off, I thought the overall idea and the post-apocalyptic thing wasn't all that bad. I thought that the setup was pretty good, that they had a means, accidental or otherwise, to have and be the only survivors, say, on Puerto Rico. There were questions and conversations back and forth a little bit about the fact that they were the only ones, and that could that be true? Other movies have done that. I think it was On the Waterfront has done that. The Last Man on Earth was another. You always hold out hope that somebody's there. So it wasn't totally, completely unrealistic for them to say go to the house phone in a hotel, which has a bunch of people in it, all of them dead, but who knows if they are? What if somebody had picked up the line? Certainly they knew something was wrong, and if they had survived for whatever reason, they might have come up and answered the house phone, not knowing any better. Who knew who was there and who wasn't? I don't know for a fact that's what it was. They claim it was that. Maybe it was a bomb. Maybe it was something, a nerve agent or something like that dissipated after a while. I don't know. I know that they said it was hard to breathe. I don't want to make excuses for the plot, but none of them were scientists, so they didn't know for sure. Their best guess was they needed oxygen, and that would have been probably a good answer for that. So I think plot-wise there wasn't a problem, at least for the setup. Now, here's where I'm going to trash the film. A good setup deserves a good execution and finale. This film did not have a finale worth a darn. Other films have done this, certainly, but it's all, and this one has, it should have said the end with a question mark just to drive us nuts and say, what did we just watch? I want my money back. I think that's probably what its biggest problem is you come up with this great idea. You've got this tryst going on, which I think was the central plot. That was the only thing that really mattered for the story, and not the science fiction setup. This was supposed to be kind of this, thing that lured people in on the double feature, and that's what drove, which made it less of a science fiction film and more of a, I wouldn't call it sexploitation for 1960, but it was a little bit of that. If you looked at the credits, it was obvious that's what they were going for. We end the film by killing one of the guys in the love triangle, and the other two wander off, which is a rather unsatisfactory, typical trope for a post-apocalyptic film. Now, for the future, when this movie gets a sequel, which I'm sure is coming out at any time. By the way, Roger is still around, Roger Corman. He's 143 years old. He will do another movie, probably a sequel to this. So I'm going to stop now, and I'll go ahead and ask if there are any additional check-ins before we move on. Anyone who'd like to join us? Last Woman on Earth, which is what we're talking about. If you'd like to join us, come with your call sign name. Let me know if you saw the film. Second round, characterization, N5BB, Bill, your comments.
Excuse me, N5BB. Well, we only had 3 characters. It was a low-budget film. And essentially three people that we had to worry with. Characterized pretty well. We had the guy in real estate who seemed to be pretty much a criminal. He was being sued all the time, and he was on the front page of the newspaper as doing bad things, and he was escaping to Puerto Rico. So at the end of the movie, the very last scene, he somehow seemed nice after killing the guy. So I was a little bit confused by him. He was chasing the guy. He was just for the island in order to kill him for no obvious reason to me. Just because he didn't want him going away with his wife doesn't mean he had to kill the guy. He may be the only other male on the earth. Why would you want to kill him? That makes no sense to me at all. I didn't understand that. But I think we kind of understood his character, although it was, the plot was weird. The other guy, the lawyer, I don't know. Near the end of the movie, it seemed like he went a little crazy. And even the woman didn't exactly understand what he wanted to do with his life. He kind of didn't care about the rest of the world. So I don't know. I didn't like his characterization very much. It was kind of goofy. The woman, like I say, the movie seemed to me to be pretty sexist. And the woman seemed to be just changing her mind willy-nilly about which man that she preferred for no good reason. I don't know. That's about the best I can come up with, Tom, in Habibi.
It's okay, Bill. We all feel the same way. It's a thin plot, thin characterization, so trying to come up with something above and beyond, unless you're inspired or have cliff notes that are really good, it's hard to articulate this film with characters. Okay, next is NT5TM. Tony, I know you didn't see the film. I'll pause for a couple of minutes if you got anything. Otherwise, I'm just going to move on to Burl after that. So I'll pause. Well, thank you, Tom, for including me, but I think it is probably time for me to check out. I'm really enjoying everyone picking on it, though. NT5TM. Hey, Tony, just put in a break since you're out of the rotation. Just a break if you want to comment. KF5TSK, Burl in Dallas, your comments on characterization.
Well, one of the things about the film was, it seemed like they all were drinking, always drinking. No one drinks that much, and especially if you don't drink and go scuba diving. I don't think you'd do it the next day or within a X number of hours. The woman, I looked at her, she was just running around and she had on flip-flops and or high heels, and it was like, she was wearing flip-flops with, walking on the rocks. It's like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. The characters were just, shallow. They, no thought for, what I'm going to do next. It's like, they were arguing over one boat and one car, and there was one truck, and it's like, well, gee, everyone's dead, and you only have two vehicles left. Nothing really, I guess, scientific about anything in the film, about the characters or about what they went through. KF5TSK, back to net.
Let's see, next is KC50ZT. Miss Caroline, comments on characterization.
About the same as everybody else. Sort of shallow, one evil, one good, and of course a woman. And there was one, scene where she mentioned children, and says, "Why do you want the children running around?" Or I forget the exact words he said, but I thought, well, how on earth do they think they're going to, probably not repopulate the whole earth, but that struck me as awfully mean of him, you know. But, I don't know that I saw her really, acting too loving, you know, to, either one of them. Well, attorney maybe, but not like you think of romantic love, but, they just seem sort of shallow to me. KH50ZT.
Thank you, Miss Carolyn. Let's see. Mike, KG5P, you got any comments? I know you didn't see the film, but any comments? That's okay. Next up, W5EBB, David, Dallas, comments on characterization.
Acting was, in general, I'd say below average. But for a Roger Corman movie, that meant that the acting was excellent. The script was actually written by the character Martin Joyce, who is Robert Towne. And he actually ended up being a very successful, prolific Hollywood writer. He actually won the Academy Award for the screenplay for Chinatown, and he is well known as a script doctor and is also credited for certain scenes in The Godfather. He also wrote the story and teleplay for the Outer Limits episode, The Chameleon. So he obviously was just getting his start with this one, but he went on to be quite successful. Now the characters, you know, again, it's an underlying story of Genesis in a way, and you know, this Earth is now kind of theirs to do with, and to find a way to survive, and in that manner, I would not doubt that some instinctive, you know, subconscious motivation kicks in to perpetuate the species. And in that manner, Eve, Evelyn, is really holding all the cards. And she, either intentionally or just kind of subconsciously in a way, plays these two against each other to see who is would be the better mate and the better choice for her, perhaps. But the flirtation and the overtures that she makes to both is basically like, let me reset. The two men need to prove themselves to be the superior. Kind of like in nature, the birds, there's a certain type of bird where the males build a nest with great precision, and the woman walks into the nest and tests it out. And she makes her selection based on how well they built the nest. And in this case, you know, Harold, he was the provider. He was the one going out fishing. And Martin was just more of a love interest, and he didn't really feel like he needed to do any work. But when power stations, industry, communication, transportation, exchange of food, goods, services, when all that goes away, you basically have to live off the land. And you know, she maybe just let them have it out and didn't really try to intercede or prevent that from happening too much. So, you know, that's kind of my spin on the characters and perhaps their motivations. W5EBB.
Thank you, David. Very good observations. WB50ZL, Miss Brenda, your thoughts on characterization?
This is WB50ZL. Yeah, the husband is definitely the better mate because he was kind of cold and a jerk to start with, but he understood the need to survive and maintain normalcy and keep their sanity and have children and keep the world going, whereas the lover is like, kids, who needs them? I don't want to. I just don't feel like working. So he would have not been the best mate because he's just lazy. And if it were me, I would say we need to have as many kids as we can because we're going to find some more people and we can repopulate the Earth, which is, I think, pretty much what everybody would think we want to do. We were talking about the chickens earlier because they were in eggs, they didn't suffocate. However, the mama hens would have died, and I don't know what chance those chickens would have had of hatching if they hadn't been kept warm by a hen sitting on the brood. So a lot of things are just a little bit illogical. I guess there would be lots of snakes and lizards and things that would hatch out of eggs. But again, the ecological imbalance would be horrific as some things gained, overpopulated and some, took over and upset things. I didn't find any of these people especially likable as characters. I'm not sure why. By the way, Roger Corman is still alive. He is 92 years old. All right, that's all I have for now. WB50ZL.
Thank you, Miss Brenda. Next up, KG5BZWJ. Your comments on characterization.
This is KG5BZW. The characters I found, honestly, I think they were just a little bit illogical. Let me explain. I can kind of see the jump from the not having a care in the world, kind of gangster, whoever you want to call the rich fella, to saying, oh hey, I needed to start actually providing and doing work and stuff like that. But I can see that a shock might change a character into actually doing what was needed. It wasn't really. I didn't quite grasp how come the lawyer, unless maybe he just depressed or something. His attitude change seemed to be a striking difference. It was just an odd reversal because it was I wanted to note the odd reversal, which actually kind of goes toward the story, I guess, in a way. If you can make it work out, I'm not sure he did. I think there was just a lot of a lot to be explained about those two characters. Now let me set. Now on to the woman. So clearly, she was just kind of along for a ride at first. Of all the characters, I guess I had the most sympathies for her. Who knows how she got into the situation where she was with the being the wife of the gangster / multimillionaire, billionaire, whatever. But there was a lot that she could learn and a lot to learn from her. I do agree with Bill in 5BB. It was some of the depiction the depiction of her was rather sexist, but there was parts where I thought, it'd take a while for me to say exactly. It was just mixed results on her. I don't know. Definitely the most interesting character. Not the most interesting character ever, for sure, but like David said about picking the best mate and all of that, there's a lot that is kind of going on underneath the surface, and it's hard to separate, for me to separate what all, like 1960s expectations of women, and from how she is expected to act from how she actually acts, and I'm not saying what I'm trying to say with due diligence as I need to, but I'm not sure I can do any better. Let me reset one more time. And otherwise, yeah, I saw some comments I should have said earlier. They really could have gone after, if they really wanted this to be a sci-fi film. No, this is not characterization, but like Brenda said, we've got a situation now where we've what predators or what not really necessary predators, but herbivores, whatever. If you don't have, let's just put it this way: we have a situation where we could have a massive amount of prey versus no predators, and that can just send. If you got the predator-prey ratio too out of whack, it can just oscillate all over the place and just wreak all kinds of havoc. And not character, but anyway, something I just wanted to say. This is KG5BCW, back to net.
Jay. Next up, N5HYP. Tom, your thoughts on characterization. This is your moment.
Okay, this is N5HYP. Characterization was, kind of one-dimensional. Maybe two-dimensional, not really very three-dimensional. There was one specific thing that they were trying to get out with the movie, and that was the triangle factor here. And so pretty much you just had to get greed and jealousy involved, and that would cover that. Also, I agree with comments that Bill and several other people made early on, was that, yes, this was very 60s. You had cigarettes. You had a beautiful woman who just kind of latched on to whatever, was portrayed as being one who just latched on to whatever was the closest thing she could grab a hold of. Yeah, we hopefully have gone a little bit further than that. The opening credits were kind of, that sort of suggestive, sexy silhouette shot that they did to try to set up something that the movie really wasn't. That was, in a way, use of selling sex to get people into hanging out and watching the movie, hoping something might happen. That was rather poor. This is N5HYP, back to net.
Thank you, Tom. And this is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. We're talking about the fine film Last Woman on Earth, or if you prefer the completely different title, The Last Woman on Earth from 1960. I'll get additional check-ins at the end of the list here. Next up is KF5PDS, Miss Billion Sherman. Your comments on plot. I'm sorry on characterization. Characterization, I'll get it right. It's getting late.
That's okay. I knew what you meant. Yes, it is getting late. Yeah, I thought it was interesting because you have 3 characters, so you can't get in a deadlock. You know, there's always the tiebreaker. But I thought the woman's role was interesting because whenever the guys would be adversaries, she kind of would break things up, or then she would create some conflict between her and her husband. So it was an interesting dynamic of a married couple and a single man who was attractive, and she was attracted to him because her marriage wasn't that great, but then realizing he's, kind of a fatalist, as Brenda said, he really didn't care about having kids, and it's like, here you are, the last 3 people on Earth, and you don't care about children. That's a problem, unless you just don't care about the human race, I guess. But he just had no interest in perpetuating. So it was kind of an interesting, fatalist type view. And the woman she had, I wouldn't say idealist, but she was looking forward to the future, wanting to have children and, perpetuating the species and at least, keeping civilization going. And then her husband was a complete opportunist. He, had built his empire and amassed his money by making things happen. He was a very get-done, take-charge kind of guy, which, yes, he was kind of a jerk, as someone else said, but that's the kind of attitude you need if you want to survive. But then towards the end, I thought it was very interesting. If you've seen The Last Man on Earth, this movie also ended with someone dying in a church. And then the couple, it was kind of like, as he was walking out, he was asking for her help to show him how to go forward, I guess, and he was starting to soften, as realizing if they were the last 2 people on Earth, then he better start paying more attention to his wife, and I thought it was kind of sad that it took that for him to begin to pay her that kind of attention. And it happened in a church, so it was almost like they were renewing their commitment to each other, or at least he was. She was, fairly committed, I guess. It was just kind of a passing, thing, fancy on her part, being attracted to the other young lawyer, but it was very fitting that they, walked hand in hand out of the church, kind of reaffirming their union. So in that aspect, I thought the film was a very interesting character study, even though the plot was very thin and just very direct, but I thought it was more interesting from the character standpoint than the plot standpoint. And I kind of wondered, too, if it was some kind of bacterial thing that dissipated over time, whether it was a loss of oxygen. I'm glad someone brought that point up, because that really, could have been, what happened. But, again, there were some plot holes there. But I did find it an interesting character study. And speaking of characters, if anybody, I know people enjoy the film Apollo 13, you can actually see Roger Corman as the senator when Tom Hanks as Jim Lovell was leading them through the place showing the politicians the rocket being built. And he was the one that says, if there's an Apollo 14, and that was Roger Corman, so in case people hadn't seen him there. But anyway, that's all I can think of with regards to characters, so I'll return it to you. This is KF5PDS, back to net.
Billy, and this is KE5ICX. Next on the list, JJ, N5IMS, your comments on characterization.
To me, like the woman was fairly consistent throughout the film. You know, she basically was dedicated to her man. Now, admittedly, at times in the movie, you know, which man it was changed, but she was dedicated to her man and, you know, trying to keep things going. You know, she was the housekeeper, she was the cook. I mean, one scene you even saw her cleaning the fish, which generally didn't seem to match with, you know, the way things normally work. Normally it's the guy does the fishing and cleans it, but regardless, you know, she was consistent. Now, the two males, they seem to reverse roles. At the beginning, the husband was all about me, you know, I build my business, I drink a lot, I womanize, I do this, and, you know, don't really care too much about anything else. Whereas the lawyer, when he came in, he was always considerate and trying to do the right thing and everything. Let me reset. The end of the movie, you know, the two males seemed to reverse roles. The lawyer, instead of being caring and, you know, thinking of everybody else, he was just, you know, the world has ended basically, I just haven't died yet, so, you know, I'll just be here until that happens. Whereas the husband, you know, started thinking about other things, started controlling things, doing the fishing, and keeping things going. So, you know, it seemed like he made a total reversal in that matter. Now, in my opinion, there was another character in the movie that I think almost was the best character of there, and that was the scenery. You know, the old cars, the cobblestone streets, the architecture, and most of all, the ocean and the various views we had of that. You know, like I put on Echolink text, you know, the Here to Eternity scene with them fighting on the beach, you know, kind of reminded me of the beach scene in Here to Eternity with them kissing. You know, in this case they were fighting, but I thought the, you know, the scenery was about the best part and most consistent part of the whole movie. Unfortunately, you know, what we saw was somewhat grainy and not very good contrast, so you couldn't really see it as well as you'd like, as I would have liked, but, you know, it still, I think, was the best character in the movie. N5 IMS.
This is KE5ICX. Thanks, JJ. Very good comments, which brings us to the bottom of the list. I'll make my comments. Thank you for all of your comments, because that gave me something to talk about, because I wasn't sure what to think about the characterization. There were some wonderful comments about the fact that with this triad going on, how are they going to compete? How are they going to show off the two guys pitted against each other with the gal, which is the whole point of the film. And if you watch the preview for it, that's exactly how they promote the film. And of course, there's the sexy part that never really happened, that is promised at the beginning of the film during the credits. All of that, oh, I agree 100%. I thought there were some interesting other parts about it, too, with everybody dressing up, you know, at dinner. It's a civilized world, but there's this sinister backplot going on. What's going to happen? There's two guys, one gal. How will that all play out in the end? Of course, we find out, and ultimately there's going to be a guy and a gal at the end of the film, but we don't know whom. So that worked out quite interestingly. I'm not sure what the deal was. I'll dabble on this one a little bit. What was the deal with the pipe? The extraordinarily large pipe. I'll leave it at that. Maybe I'm reading more into the film than I should, but that being there, and I thought, okay, maybe this is never mind. Ultimately, though, I absolutely agree with JJ as well about the scenery in the film. This is Puerto Rico, and it's beautiful. They gave us enough time because the film didn't have enough plot, but it had plenty of time to establish scenes. I thought that was pretty cool, and I agree. Puerto Rico itself and the beach and all of that was a character in and of itself, and helped to establish an interesting continuity in the film that it wouldn't have had otherwise. So, from what I understand, this film itself was one of 3 that were filmed back-to-back in Puerto Rico by Roger Corman, and that kind of makes sense in the end. Plus, you can go back and refilm or add continuity as you needed it, additional film coverage. Let me reset. I think overall, you know, it was a bit plotting, it was slow, and the characters as well, the repartee between the characters was also somewhat slow and protracted, although it did play out probably the way you would have expected in the film. I thought that overall it looked okay. It was slow. Going back to the plot part, yeah, a 22-minute Twilight Zone episode would have been perfect for it. But in any case, I still kind of enjoyed it. It's kind of, with these comments, I think it's less bad than it might have been. And the characterizations were slightly better than maybe I thought they were when I saw the film. All right, this is KE5ICX. We're talking about the last woman on Earth. If I have an additional check-ins, please come now, and we'll go to the top, and then it'll be a free-for-all after this. Anybody else who would like to join us this evening, please come now. Okay, hearing no one, I assume everybody has checked in who would like to participate. This is our open round. This is when you get a chance to talk about anything you want about this film. Please come with your call sign, and I'll go through the list. Anyone with additional comments, please come out.
5BB. 25EBB.
N5 IMF.
We'll start with those 3. N5BB, Bill, your comments.
This is N5BB. Let's see. Costumes, music, and photography. The interesting thing about the clothing is that they're all dressed up during most of it. And, you know, she's wearing a flowing dress at some times. And other times she's wearing pants. But it makes no sense to me that when she's leaving to go off to who knows where, she's wearing this flowing dress. Doesn't seem very practical to me. The clothing is also immaculate. It's all clean and good. And even after they come out of the water in some later scenes, their clothing isn't plastered to their bodies like it should be. Not in all the later scenes. So it's goofy. And then they tear the guy's shirt. BB, am I here? Did you hear any of that?
Bill, go ahead. We heard all of it.
Okay, I pressed the wrong button and changed repeaters. That's why I wasn't sure. Anyway, the lawyer's shirt got torn at one point after he came out of the water, and it looked like he was just artificially torn. So I thought the clothing was weird. One thing about it is, at one point, close to the end of the movie, they're out on the beach, and the lawyer's wearing like light-colored clothing, like a white shirt and things. And both the no, that's not right. Wrong way. The rich guy is wearing light-colored clothing, but Evelyn and the lawyer guy, they are all in black. It seemed to be a little symbolic there or something. They were like aligned together because they were all dressed the same. Anyway, I thought they had way too many clothes, and they were far too clean and nice and everything. Doesn't make any sense to me for people that are into the world. Why aren't they wearing T-shirts and dungarees and etc.? Somebody made a comment about improper shoes when they're going around over the rocks, and that's probably true also. I thought there was far too much wandering around near the seacoast, and I think that was just to waste time. It didn't add much to the movie. They're here, and most of it was impeccably done. So in the very last scenes, she looks like she just come out of a beauty salon. Look at her hair. Look at his hair. The guy's hair. They're all impeccably done. Make no sense at all. They're the last three people on Earth. What the heck do they care what their hair looks like? So hair and makeup was just totally overdone. Music. During the time when they're coming in from being out on the boat and coming in, he's playing the radio to make sure he hears anything. And there's music on it. And everyone complains about it, and he says, well, I'm doing it just to listen. Of course, the only reason was so they'd have some music in that part of the movie. But I thought it was kind of interesting that they made that lame excuse for playing that music for so long, just to have something to help fill in the music in that part of the movie. What else? Oh, photography. I thought the photography was actually pretty good. Corman made a very obvious effort in the church scenes to have this very symmetrical view of the sanctuary from the inside, and kind of a formal view with her up there, kind of like it's a metaphor of some type. I'm not sure exactly what for, but a metaphor. And they made there was a metaphor there talking about kind of about they're losing God and everything. But I thought that was just kind of thrown into the script. The rest of the photography I thought was done pretty good for a 1960 black and white low-budget movie. That's all I got. In 5ED.
Thank you, Bill, and good comments. And I'm going to do a Bill myself. It actually was in color. The original film was in color, such as it was. There's three versions of this film. There's a full color that with cropped picture that's very blurry, but it is much better. I think it was a DVD release that came up here a few years ago. The second is the black and white 16mm copies, which is maybe what you saw. That is actually a pretty good copy in black and white, and it works just fine. And then there is a color. It almost looks like two-strip color. Too many browns and slight reds and not a lot of blue that really looks like green. That's the third one, and that's what's on archive, and that's what I linked to until I found out about these other two. But that's the one I watched because the dimensions were right. But enough about that. W5EBD. David, your comments, anything. Go ahead.
W5FC.
Extending on what Bill said, there's a scene where Evelyn and Harold are riding rather swiftly down a dirt road in their convertible, and their hair is not moving at all. So that was a pretty obvious gaffe. Now, this movie obviously did not get an ASPCA endorsement for no harm to animals, as was evident in one of the first scenes, the cockfight at the beginning, where one of them is killed viciously by repeated pecks on the head. And that actually was foreshadowing of the plot to come. Now, the Caribe Hilton, where this was filmed at, was built in 1949, and it's undergone a year's worth of renovations. It lies on 17 acres, kind of on a point, and reservations, you can get reservations there starting late December this year. It was about 8 years ago. I've been to Puerto Rico twice, and before they noted that they were located on Puerto Rico, I said, that looks really familiar. Now, it turns out I didn't stay at the Caribe Hilton, but I stayed at the Condado Hilton, and I could see across the ocean where the point is where Caribe Hilton is located. So it looked very familiar. And actually, San Juan, Puerto Rico was an excellent choice for locating this film. Now we see, in some of the chase scenes, they're running through what's probably either San Geronimo Fort or El Morro Fort, the oldest Spanish fort in the New World. So there was a lot of opportunity in a very small amount of acreage there to do a lot of interesting scenery, and old San Juan too, the brick cobblestone roads. It was very scenic, so it was an excellent choice for shooting the film. Now, if this plot also involved basically the element of this is a reset of the Earth, and a return to an idyllic land or even Eden, well, the characters pretty much messed that up right off the bat.
The time is 12:05 a.m.
Thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill. Well, they dispense with those in short order. W5 EBB.
Hey, thank you, David. Good comments. And this is KE5ICX. We're talking about the last woman on Earth. Next up, N5IMS. JJ, you had comments. Go ahead.
Just two comments to kind of dovetail with the clothing. There was, one scene which I think was a continuity error with the guy who was walking around in white pants there on the beach. I think that was the husband, if I remember right. But you could see him walking in the water with his pants wet from his knees down, and there was a slight angle change in the camera, and his pants were totally dry except for where his rear end was, where he obviously was sitting on a rock or whatever for them to reposition things that was damp, and so he was walking around with a wet behind until he got more into the water, and then the water splashed up. I thought that was a bit of a strange continuity error. Seems like most of the continuity flowed fairly well, but that kind of jumped out at me for some reason. Let me reset. Let's see. The next thing was I read a review on there from a site that it was not Rotten Tomatoes, but it was a similar site that reviewed, and they basically made it sound like what this movie was he was going to do two films down there, and his first film wrapped early, and he had a few, couple $1,000s left over to from that movie. So what he did, he got with the writer and whipped this up in a hurry and spent all of $10,000 getting the whole movie put together. Now, I doubt if that was correct, because it looked like some of that stuff, would have been more than that, for the scenery and everything, the location, the actors and everything. But, it did seem, kind of to explain the, I guess, the lack of plot if it was just thrown together that quick. But I thought that was a bit strange. Let me reset again. comment was on the version that I saw, it all of a sudden went black for several seconds, and then you saw the slide where it came in, and like they were changing reels at that time, but forgot to reset when they were making the master. So it just seemed strange. Did we get a bad version or whatever? But I thought that was interesting. Then all of a sudden it came back and continued for the rest of the movie. Normally you don't see issues like that. Although when I was doing some stuff way back in the early 70s for a TV station that was known as the Wonderful World of Movies, we would get that fairly often during those, because they would just get whatever movie that they could get at the lowest cost to get on to fill time. So every now and again we would get movies with that, and they would splice in commercials, and not necessarily all of the splices would hold while you were watching it. So all of a sudden you'd hear the thump of the movie on a projector and have to throw in a commercial real fast, run in there and rethread it and get things going. So it kind of reminded me of that. Back to the net, N5 IMS.
All right, thank you, JJ. This is KE5ICX. Okay, this is it. Any final comments? Anything that you would like to say before we end the movie? Before we end the net, and I tell you what next week's movie is. Anybody else? Please come down.
W5EBB.
N5BB.
All right, I got the BBs, W5EBB and then N5BB. Go ahead.
A quick comment I forgot to make earlier about the attire, the long pants in particular. It's actually a cultural thing in Puerto Rico. When you're outside, you wear typically long pants and a short sleeve shirt. That's just standard for people who live there. If you see somebody with shorts or a tank top walking down the street, you know they're not from there. I learned that the last time I was there. So a lightweight linen is very common. So there's a certain formality even when you're outdoors in Puerto Rico. W5EBB.
Thank you, David. And Bill, N5BB. Go ahead.
Yes, David or somebody talked earlier about the fact that when they were driving, it looked like their hair wasn't moving. It was worse than that. There were scenes in the car when he was driving and playing like he was acting like he was moving the steering wheel. The background doesn't change. They didn't make any strong effort to appear like it was realistic. It was a fixed cloud or whatever in the background. Everything was completely fixed. They weren't shaking up and down or anything. They were just sitting there, and he was moving the wheel of the car, and it was obviously fake. That stood out like a sore thumb to me. One other little comment. In the movie, the lawyer character, when he was complaining to Evelyn that, there is no future. Why have kids? There's no reason to think about the future. He quoted something that you may have heard before. No more pencils, no more books, no more teachers' dirty looks. And many of us may have first heard that from the Alice Cooper song School's Out from 1972. And you may improperly think that the band Alice Cooper wrote that. Wrong. It is very, very old, a very, very old phrase that was around in the 19th century. And the last versions of it with No More Teachers' Dirty Looks was first published in 1927. So that was a well-known, the kids, little nursery rhyme kind of thing that kids would say long before 1960 or before Alice Cooper put it in schools out in 1972. Just for a little piece of trivia. N5BB.
Thanks, Bill. And I knew that. That's all I can say. Okay. But I wasn't born in the 20s. Or lived during the 20s. But I might have. Okay, let's see. That takes care of those two on the list. Any final comments before I tell you next week's fine film?
She says she has a comment. N5IMS.
Well, thank you. I've been trying to keep up, and thanks, JJ. I should have done a relay. And I sometimes forget, even though I got this gigantic screen with Echolink on it. Okay, KFI PDS. Miss Billy, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out there that there's another really good and weird apocalyptic film from 1985. It also has a weird apocalyptic event, 3 people surviving, love triangle ensues, but ends very strangely. New Zealand's The Quiet Earth. If we could ever find a copy of that, that would be awesome to do. I think it's definitely along the same vein, but a little more interesting. It's really cool. I think it'd be a good discussion film, but I don't know how easily we can find a copy of it. But I guess we could look around. So again, that was The Quiet Earth from 1985. This is KFI PDS back to net.
Good. Thank you, Billy. And that is one of my favorite films, post-apocalyptic or otherwise. It's a wonderful, slightly offbeat, cool, very cool film. I have a VHS copy of that film, and I've watched it more than once, many times actually. I do love that film as well. It's got some really cool psychodrama that goes in with it that is quite amazing. I've circled it. I have looked for this film in the past because I agree with you. I have a passion and an appreciation for that film, and I've not been able to find it. It's one of those that's difficult, but I will do that again and make sure that it happens. I'll do another search and see if we can find it somewhere, someplace, somehow. All right, this is KE5ICX. Here's next week's movie. It is online. It's on YouTube. Are you ready for this? The film is called Decay. It's more like a zombie movie more than science fiction. But why? Why a zombie movie? Because this is an amateur film that was done at the CERN Super Collider. I can't make this up. I really can't. It really was filmed there. I have not seen it. I caught a couple of scenes from it. I thought, well, this is crazy enough. We could talk about super colliders and subatomic particles or zombies or both. Decay from 2013. It's not a commercial film. It is an amateur film, but it looks very professional. Maybe more professional than the film we just saw. In any case, that's for next week. If you would like to be a part of this, if you're listening in and have not checked in to the net, we do have a Facebook page. It is Afterglow Movie. That's 2 words, Afterglow and Movie. Just ask to be included. Or if you'd like to send me an email to let me know. If you don't do the social media, just send an email to Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray, KE5ICX at yahoo.com, and say you're interested in being added to the list. We have a small list of folks that get the email rather than social media, or sometimes both. Either way or both is up to you. This is KE5ICX. I'm going to go ahead and clear. 7-3, everybody. Had a good time this evening. Who would have thunk that we would get an hour and 10 minutes worth of conversation out of this film? 7-3. Good night. Have a good weekend, and catch you next week.
K5ICX in 5BB. Tom, you mean that when I look at IMDb, I find the 2013 film Decay with 2 people in it. It's 5 minutes long. Is that what you're talking about?
I think it's longer than that. Let me double check. Hold on. I can't be just 5 minutes long. Hang on.
It's a Canadian film. Oh, wait a minute. There's a different one. There's a 2012 film, Decay, that was set at the Large Hadron Collider. That's what you're talking about, the 2012 film. Different film. It's directed by Luke Thompson.
This is the one. It's a 75-minute film, and it does have the Super Collider in it. I recognize it because, well, I do. That's the film. And it's in HD.
Yes, 2012. Don't get people looking for 2013 or so we'll see this other thing. Okay, 2012. Okay, thanks. In 5BB. And by the way, we really look at the time. We're taking some very simple films, if you think about it, and really peeling off the layers, aren't we? In 5BB clear.
So thanks, and I agree with you. It is super cool because sometimes I'm a lughead when it comes to some of these films. I don't know what to see in them, and then sometimes people go and make some comments, and you go, "Wait a minute, that makes sense." Even in a film that's nonsensical, somewhere or another, there's this seed of inspiration or an idea. And sometimes people have a feel for it, or a director has an idea, a writer has an idea, but sometimes they don't always translate exactly out. And I think sometimes these films, even though they don't always click exactly, there is a seed of inspiration there that sometimes can be picked up by people who are really looking. Otherwise, maybe it's the other way around. There is no seed of inspiration whatsoever, and this inspires others to pull something out of it that isn't necessarily there. You can look you can look at the glass either half empty or half full. W5FC. I'm saying good night. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear. See you next week.
W5EBB. I have been on a search to find the moon and beyond. The Douglas Trumbull short film, the filmed in Cinerama that was presented at the 1964 World's Fair, which catapulted his career into his later 2001 A Space Odyssey effort. Does anyone know where I can find that? I have not been able to online to the moon and beyond. W5EBB.
I'm looking for it. You've probably done exhaustive searches. I didn't even know about that film, and I'm a big Douglas Trumbull fan. So color me a neophyte on that one.
Somewhat related, I didn't make it to see the IMAX 2001: A Space Odyssey a few months ago, but the DVD or 4K, whatever kind of player you have, it's on. You can get it on pre-order right now. It will be released on October 30th. So maybe, I'll cross my fingers, maybe that's part of the special stuff they add to it, but I'm not holding my breath. But if you're interested, that will be available soon. W5EBB.
All right, amazingly, I found, just with a simple search, a very bad copy of the music by Gerald Fried, who was a very popular composer back in the 60s, did a lot of stuff on Star Trek and motion pictures, but it's just the music. I don't see the film. The music is 12 minutes and 33 seconds. Maybe that's the start of finding that. I don't know. Yeah, that's all I see right off the top. I'll go looking for it. Maybe we can find it somewhere.
Right, that was the YouTube. The only YouTube link that I found was just that music. And don't look for it tonight, though, because you'll be up all night, because I've searched for it for over an hour and I couldn't find it. But thanks for looking. W5EBB.
By the way, I just sent you and David, other people here, a link to a Vimeo, how you pronounce it, listing for Decay, and it seems to be a high-quality version. So look at your inbox, N5BB. See you next week.
All right, very good, Bill. Appreciate it, and I'll check that probably in the morning. And David, W5EVB, I'll play name dropper here. Doug Drexler, who I've mentioned over on the Facebook page, he is a New York World's Fair fanatic and fan, and he's in the biz, so he knows people. I'll see if he has anything he knows about this particular movie. I have a suspicion he does, and he might have some insider info or outsider info, or he knows where to find out. We'll ask him. I'll toss him a little note that way and see if he's willing to respond. Okay, that's it for me. KE5ICX, I'm clear.
Sounds great. Thanks a lot. 7-3, everybody. W5EBB clear.
Yeah, W5EBB, KG5P.
This is W5EBB.
Yeah, I was just looking at you. There's a couple of them on YouTube. I found parts 1 and parts 4. They're both about 12 minutes long. It seems to me that it'd be strange there's parts 1 and 4 and missing the others, but I assume that you found that since you searched for it, but would that be the movie you were looking at?
It's possible. Sometimes these searches yield certain things one day and different things another day. So I'll search specifically for that. I would expect it to be a rather short film, but it'd be surprising if they needed to split it up like that. It was more of a demo, kind of a technology demonstration of basically one